Annelies Getting Coffee. My name is Annelies James, and today I'm joined by Claire Sandbrook, who is a global security and enforcement expert and CEO of Sher Group. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
No worries, no worries. It's a glorious day. We're in a glorious innovation centre in Fareham, so a massive thank you for them as well for the hospitality today. So I'm very interested in your story because you are a very powerful woman in business, and I love a powerful woman in business.
I've lived a life.
Yes. So you actually, is this right, the first ever female under-sheriff? That's interesting. What does that mean?
Of an entire county?
Yes.
Well, sheriffs were Anglo-Saxon creations actually, and then when William the Conqueror came over in 1066, he adopted the sheriff system to be able to run the Norman court throughout the kingdom. Okay. And the sheriffs were delegated effectively to be his number two. Right. So the king sent out his sheriffs into the shires, and each county had a sheriff. And over the centuries, you know, their powers were eroded as society developed. Mm-hmm. But under-sheriffs were always the lawyers to the sheriffs. Okay. They were the legal bods, effectively. Oh. I think the most famous under-sheriff in history was Thomas More, in the time of Henry VIII. And so by the time it got to me in 1998, Surrey was a lovely county. I'd always had male under-sheriffs, as indeed all the counties of England and Wales had. Mm-hmm. And I was the first woman to be appointed a sheriff, as I was a qualified attorney, for the entire county.
It's such a fascinating sector to work in, and I literally thought it was like sheriffs and cowboys. Like,
well,
you're like, kind of.
Well, we do come from that. I mean, we you know, we were the original sheriffs. Yeah. The English sheriffs were the originals. So, you know, anything you see in America or Australia, other parts of the Commonwealth, all that system derived from the English system, going back 1,000 years, which I think is colossal. I mean, I'm very proud of that history. Yeah. And over the time of my career, I've done what I can to promote it, because I think it's been a bedrock, really, of part of our legal system, which of course has also gone around the world. Yeah, yeah. So we should be very proud of that as Brits.
Absolutely. Well, we don't talk about history enough, actually, do we?
No.
I think everything's sort of now and everything's sort of like immediate content and quite disposable. But actually we've got a lot of heritage and we've got a lot of history here, and we should actually champion that a bit more.
I think one American colleague once said to me a few years ago now, "How did your little island end up so powerful?" And, you know, I think that's perhaps outside of the UK, that's how we're perceived. But the fact is that we have a rich history, and we you know, we use it. We certainly use it in Sher Group. Yeah. Yeah. So Sher Group, the name you told me off camera, actually derives from sheriff. Yes. Love that. Amazing. Yes. I didn't think it was that original when my marketing team some time ago came up with that name. And we had done a brainstorm, and, you know, we were looking for a new identity, and I don't know what I thought they were going to come up with, but when they said, well, we took sheriff and we took group and we put them together into Sher Group, that's not really the best you could come up with. But and then I kind of wanted it to be She Group, because I thought, well, if you're going to be that original, then we might as well just have a woman-owned business,
like She-Ra.
Yeah, just like me. And then they said, no, we can't have that. Well, I went, okay. But anyway, we ended up with Sher Group, and yeah, the rest is history.
I love it. Amazing. So how did you get into security, enforcement? What other things does Sher Group actually do?
Well, we've set our shop out really as a business solutions provider. At the moment, we're at a security and enforcement consultancy stage, but our game plan is to basically put businesses in touch with trusted businesses through Sher Group that help them run their business. I mean, I've been running a business now for best part of 40 years, and it's a challenge, and I know it's a challenge. It's a challenge for me. I think it's a challenge for a lot of business owners out there, both in the UK and now I work in the States. All of us have the same quests. We're all on the same quest to grow our businesses. We're all on the same quest to make our businesses relevant. And one of the challenges of Share Group is it has this tremendous heritage, but we started in 1780. And how do you future-proof a business that had a heritage stretching back to 1780?
Yeah,
You've got to make it relevant today. And whilst I love the history, people are okay. So you're sheriffs and you enforce judgments and you recover land. Okay, well, only a small section of society needs that, which is true. So how do we build on that? And how do we provide solutions? And we're doing that, and we're building our security teams. Enforcement is fairly unique to the UK, but then there's so many other services that businesses need: sales, marketing, accountancy, funding. All these things we're sort of looking to put into our shop. So that's very exciting.
And it's quite nice as well, because actually what you're doing essentially is your fundamental business is based on trust. It's about getting things done, it's deliverables. And actually then what you're doing is you're building on that and expanding the solutions to businesses, and you're kind of giving it the Share Group stamp of trust, authority. And that's a really powerful tool, actually.
Yeah, I mean, our two planks are the recovery of money and the recovery of property. That's what sheriffs do today in England and Wales. And out of those, we've said, okay, well, that's two things. That's two strong platforms that we do. How can we add different services into those arenas, and then do some fun stuff on top? That's how the security business was born, because we were recovering land for landowners, and then the security teams that they were putting on were too weak, and the squatters and the trespassers were getting back onto the land, so we just evicted them all at quite a large bill for the landowner, and then blow me down, they got back on the land because nobody was securing it. So I said, no, we'll do our own security. And that's how we got into security.
And that's nice when it evolves, isn't it? Like that, it's like a natural need rather than something forced, and it sort of evolves, doesn't it, as a business?
Well, I think we've been good at that, and I've been interested in doing that. I mean, as I say, otherwise it becomes same old every day or every decade. I've been doing this for a long time.
Well, once you become an expert in your field, you're actually like, okay, how can I challenge myself next?
I think that's what drives me, that I'm always challenging myself, much to my husband's disgust. But I'm never satisfied, and I always want to develop the brand. And I think our DNA as a company is really about helping people, and I think I've been doing that all the way through my professional life. And we've helped thousands of people, and we just want to carry on doing that. And of course, today's technology and platforms gives us the platform to be able to do more. It's great.
Amazing. I was actually going to ask you about the values that drive your business. So I think you've said helping people is a real value, like a driver for you. What other values would you say weave through your company, but also as a very powerful female in a very male-dominated industry, do your values as a woman, do you think, separate you from the industry, or is it help hinder?
Yeah, I mean, somebody asked me that the other day actually, and I think women do have particular virtues, and I'm going to say that for my gender.
I like that. Particular virtues.
Particular virtues, multitasking being one of them.
100%, yeah.
And my husband is probably killing himself now at this point. I think everybody has something to contribute. But as a woman, and certainly over the last 40 years, I mean, I've seen a lot of changes in business, and I'm so pleased to see women really being respected now and having a voice and being determined to have a voice, actually. Whereas perhaps when I first started in business, women were more sheepish. Although at the time we did have Mrs. Thatcher as the PM, when I started in business, and she was a colossal personality and really very misunderstood, I felt, as a woman. I think she was tremendous as a leader. And I think that we do have a lot to do and a lot to say, and it's good that we're being recognised for that now. And it's good when men recognise it. I know women, recognise it, but I think, I've also had some fantastic male mentors during my career, more male than female, I have to say. And I've, worked with judges and, senior lawyers. and they've been very generous to me in wanting to see me succeed. So I see the gender issue, and I think the thing to do with it is push past it and not let it get in the way.
100%.
You know?
I think it's just about championing, but not obviously championing, because then it becomes a difference.
Well, you don't want to alienate 50% of your fan club, you know, and men are your fan club at the end of the day. You don't want to choose them off.
Yeah, that's true.
You want to take them with you.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've worked with some great guys over the years, men and women.
Yeah.
And I've also met some women who I thought were disappointing.
Well, it's individuals, isn't it? Actually,
it is at the end of the day.
And we live actually much more, particularly the way marketing's moving, in so much more marketing to a specific individual nowadays.
Yes.
Which is crazy, but it actually makes perfect sense.
Yes.
We're not a mass market anymore.
No.
That sort of stuff doesn't really
so
exist.
I think it's just, you know, getting that balance right, whatever is right for you and your business, and just being respectful of women, and just remembering that we have had to fight a bit harder for our boys.
And thus we are stronger.
Yes.
Come back stronger.
Yes.
I love it. So values then behind the business,
yes.
maybe more generically, what would you say drives it? Or what I suppose are your values, and how does that drive the business?
Well, I come from a very working class background. My father was a stoker and very working class, but both my parents, you know, bright and didn't have the opportunities they were able to give me. So my mum and dad worked every day. I mean, they just had an ethic of hard work, you know. Never knew my dad take a sick day, never knew him complain about his job, you know, did his hours, did his job properly, and he was a good guy. And my mum the same. So I think what I've done is I've surrounded myself really with a group of colleagues who are all of the same background, and we're all very kind of
grafters, hard workers.
Yeah, we are. And when you build a team like that, if you encounter somebody that doesn't have that value, they can't stay on the team.
Yeah,
you know,
because they're surrounded by people that are different from them, and it probably just makes them feel quite alienated. I imagine.
Yeah. So I think hard work, and when we started back in 1998 transferring judgments, which was, you know, a pivotal point in our history as a company, this was a process that was there but it wasn't used, and I kind of brought it to the fore, and I brought in a team of ladies, 4 of whom are still with me today, and they were all trained in financial services, and they were all very particular about paperwork and queries, and they just would resolve things. And even today, you know, that's part of our kind of mission, is if you give us something to do, we're going to resolve it, one way or another. Yeah. And I think that really drives us. Sometimes it drives me mad.
You're like, damn it, a new challenge.
Well, I'm an entrepreneur, so I want to be on to the next thing. And they're saying, Claire, what about this? So that, you know, everything is, I think, you know, with the team behind me, everything is tidy, everything is organised, which is fantastic. I'm very fortunate to have them. Amazing.
And I suppose the strength of the team is what has enabled you to then break into other markets, because you've broken into American markets. Yeah. Is it right that you work with Walt Disney World?
Yeah, we do security for Walt Disney World. We're one of their trusted vendors.
Amazing. Yes. So how do you break into America? So you're in the UK, obviously established, but how do you do that next step? How do you scale up?
Well, I think how we managed to do it, and some days I wonder if I would do it again. I think how we managed to do it really was that we had started on this quest for a sales process, and we adopted the same process that we have in the UK and the US, which is a lot of, you know, analysis of data and who's buying, and then just really, you know, ringing them up and knocking on the door. Okay. And we got our first break with a security manager who actually came to work for me in the end, and he worked at the Swan and Dolphin in Walt Disney World, and he was looking for a new security company, and the ones that he'd seen them all before, and we came along with a fresh story and our Britishness.
Britishness always sells it.
And he gave us a chance.
Yeah.
And out of that, obviously, once we had, one Walt Disney World property, we were able to use that to leverage off for other properties and other projects. So, it really was about just, getting on the phone and talking to people and then meeting them. And it gave us our first break in America.
That's amazing. I think that traditionalness of the business really sells it, and it shows that established nature and that trust that exists. But I think you're right, that old-fashioned graft of just get in front of people, figure out who you want to kind of persuade and just get through the door. You can't beat old-fashioned techniques, actually.
Well, I had a very persistent sales guy, Omar Ababa. If you're listening to this, you know who you are. And he was quintessential salesman, but he was great, and he didn't give up.
Yeah.
And he just used to bug the hell out of people, but he got there.
Yeah.
So I like salespeople. I get what they're trying to do. If they ring me up, and they say, da 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 da, I say, come on, give me your pitch. Tell me what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
I always listen to them because I think it's a very hard job.
Absolutely, and I think people are really dismissive of salespeople.
They are.
It must be such a hard sell and such a dismal thing to do sometimes.
Yeah.
God, get on the phone all day.
But I really respect them. I mean, that some of the best ones are really thick-skinned, and they take rejection. I couldn't do that job, but they do brilliantly.
They've probably got really good resilience skills.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think it's I think growing the business and selling is the biggest challenge in business, and I have made that a big part of my development of Share Group, to have a process for that we all understand, and we're all singing on the same hymn sheet, and I think we've been successful in that.
It's a really interesting thing to utilise tradition and old kind of methods of doing things, getting things done. Love that. But how does your industry use new technology? Because I imagine with security and enforcement, it's actually all about development of new technologies quite often.
Yes.
So what are you embracing at the moment? How quickly does it transition through new technologies? How does it work?
I think for me, as part of that kind of solution business, I want to take my client base with me on the journey that they've asked us to work with them on, whether it be security or enforcement or anything else. So at the moment we're developing, and it's just teetering on its go live date, our platform, which is a dedicated platform for all Share Group services. So whatever service you engage us in, you'll be able to have your own dashboard, you'll be able to see your own service, and you'll be able to see your own metrics for that service in real time. So I'm excited about that because that's giving the clients the kind of insight and data that they need to be justify working with Share Group, which I think is important.
And so much now is about immediate responsive results, and people want to see ROI quite quickly, don't they?
Yes, and so we just had to funnel all of that, really all of our collective expertise that we've gathered over the last 25 years. My daughter is 25, so I always work on her age. 25 years, and put that into a system. And we had a system originally, but we've really whacked it now. We've really future-proofed it. And we're working with some really exciting tech teams. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
So that's about giving the clients the insight that they deserve and need. And then beyond that, what is happening in terms of new tech. At the moment, we've got a big thing going on with body-worn cameras. Because in enforcement in the UK, the government have decided that they want all enforcement agents to wear body-worn cameras when they are visiting the public.
I imagine that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Initially, I was a bit, I'm not sure, because I always felt that enforcement agents should be able to do the job and engage with the public without a camera being present.
Yeah.
It was a bit of old-fashioned bailiffing, really, because bailiffs in the past have always had the respect of the public quietly, but the world has changed.
Absolutely. Well, people have cameras anyway because they could just get their phone out, couldn't they?
Exactly. So this government have made this decision, which I think is sensible, and we have to embrace that technology. And I'm following and tracking this story on Google, and you know, police forces all over the world are now deploying body-worn cameras, and if you like, they're going first. And you can see that they're having the debates that we're going to have here about, you know, intrusiveness and civil liberties, and how is that going to work. And so what we're doing now is pulling that all into a policy and approach for Share Group, and indeed sharing that. We want to share that with our industry partners and associations, because we think that we have an insight on it that perhaps others don't.
Yeah.
And instead of saying, oh, it won't work, and what's the point, and how are we going to do this, I think Share Group's approach is, government have said they want it, let's deliver it.
Well, that goes back to the graft, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean, I imagine there's a couple of things in this for me. One is about, I think it's protection, isn't it, for the specific staff, but also for the public.
Yep.
But the cost of actually implementing that is, I imagine, massive. But also, what on earth do they do with that amount of data?
Yes.
What happens to the data once it's captured? Where does that go? How does that, is that stored? Is it deleted? What happens?
Well, that's one of the big questions. But if you look at, that's got to be solved. But if you look at it on the basis that it is data, so it falls under the Data Protection Act, right? And it falls under the principles of processing data. Actually, it's not that big a issue to solve. You just got to apply the principles, and you know, it's got to be fair, reasonable, you know, relevant, timely, etc., etc. And so apply, instead of worrying about it what it is in terms of data, say, okay, well, if this was a piece of paper, how would we process it? How would we store it? How would we retrieve it? Who would be able to see it? The same goes for camera footage. And so you apply those principles, then you can start and build your process for the whole, from the time that the camera is, you know, starts running all the way through to deleting the data. You've got an entire process there, and I think that's the way you've got to approach it.
You're quite a forward planner, aren't you? I think I'm pragmatic. I mean, you know, there's no point saying to government it can't be done. Well, because they're not going to listen, are they?
They're not going to listen. I mean, somebody either you provide government with a solution, or you can sit on the fence and say it can't be done. It's stupid. What's the point?
Watch other people do it.
Yes. And the police have to do it. And we are, I mean, quasi-police. We have judicial authority. If the police have to do it, we've got tremendous examples of how the police are rolling out body-worn camera, cameras. And so, what's the problem? We've got police forces all over the country grappling with these same issues. Let's learn from the police. Somebody will pipe up and say, well, we're not police. Well, yeah, we know that, but that's our role model. I mean, don't we want to act and operate like, you know, trained police officers?
Well, that's a standard, isn't it?
Exactly.
That's a standard of, you know, operating. And you kind of, there's a question in that. If someone doesn't want to wear body-worn cameras, why is that?
Yes.
Why? What are they acting unethically? Like, is there something going on there that they don't want that seen? That's a bit of a dark question, but...
Well, no, it will drive, what it will do in enforcement terms, you know, at the end of the day, we're going into people's businesses and homes and compelling payment. Right? So there's no reason why we wouldn't want to wear a camera. And if an agent didn't want to wear a camera, then question why are you doing the job? Because now you're going to have to. It's part of your... You know, it's part of your kit.
And it's nothing worse than someone feeling forced into doing something, so maybe the profession wasn't for them.
Well, fine. I mean, just leave the profession then. You know, it's like a police officer that doesn't want to wear one. If you don't want to do it, then don't be in the force. We have to say the same thing. And then once we're out there, you know, the public may not want to be filmed. Now, there have to be clear guidelines and places where the public can go to check what's happening to them when this process is happening. I think there's not enough resources. That's why we got involved with the TV shows. There's not enough resources for the public to understand this very scary thing that's going to happen to them, that a bailiff is going to come into their, enforcement agent is going to come into their house or their business and take control of goods, or is going to come into their home and evict them. You know, now if that happens to you, you want to be able to go and look somewhere that somebody's got the authority to do it. And really, if you're kind of in that predicament where you might lose your home or you might end up with a judgment against you, you want to be able to see what that process looks like if you're sensible, I think. And TV and the internet provide lots of examples now, which 10 years ago weren't there.
It's all about information, isn't it?
It is all about information.
Because people often don't mind if you just are open and honest and you just say, this is what this is. And then they're like, oh, okay. This is the pill, you take this pill, it does exactly this. They're like, okay.
Yeah, I think that's right. Of course, unfortunately, in our industry, we're not always dealing with straightforward people.
Yeah, I bet, yeah.
And we're also dealing with desperate people.
Yeah.
And desperate people do unusual things. And if I was in that situation, maybe I would do the same. I mean, it's not for me to judge them, but it is for me to make sure that when they are in that situation, that they are handled appropriately.
And with a duty of care, respect, those sorts of things
as
well.
I think that's something that sheriffs have always had, is respect for the public. I mean, the public may not feel that, but I've always said to people, most of us that are doing this job, and certainly, have been in the industry as long as I have. I mean, most of us are parents. We've got our own families to think about, and whilst the people that we engage with are not our family, we're open to their situation. We understand their situation.
Well, some of the situations I imagine are maybe outside of people's control, or
some of them are very, very desperate and very, very sad. I mean, there's a whole debate about mental health and going on at the moment, and quite right so. And we see the very sharp end of mental health, often long before a social worker or a doctor has seen it, because we're going into people's homes where people have hidden themselves away, are frightened to come out, and we're having to go in there and tackle that. So that's another one of my big things at the moment, is how do we prepare the industry to deal with mental health, both for the people that we engage with, and also for the people that work in enforcement. How do we prepare them for dealing with people with mental health problems, because they can get mental health problems by doing the job that they do.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you're going to collect a debt for a funeral company and it's the death of a child, and you're trying to get the parent to pay a sum of money because they couldn't afford to pay for the child's funeral, and it was a baby. I've had officers crying in those sorts of situations because it's perturbed them so much.
Such a difficult field to work in, and you're offering such a human insight to it from both sides, which is absolutely fascinating, actually.
Yeah.
Because enforcement, security, it's all kind of these big words, but actually when you drill down,
there's
so much more there.
It's people, and you trying to help. You're trying to help the creditor recover what they're owed, what the court has said they're owed, or their property. But when you go to do that, you've got the other side of the equation with a man or woman, children who are living a life with this hanging over them, and somehow you've got to balance that. And I was approached to do the Can't Pay, Take It Away TV show 4 years ago. And one of the reasons I signed up to it was because I wanted to get the eyeballs of the nation on these situations.
Yeah.
I wanted everyone to understand what enforcement means, either from the creditor point of view, or the debtor point of view, or the advisor point of view. And I felt that TV show achieved that in getting enforcement into the mainstream consciousness.
Yeah. Because you're also doing some work at the moment with the Telegraph as well.
Yes.
So I think for you at the moment, it's about the visibility. I think it's also about the human aspects, helping people to understand this. And I guess alongside that is maybe support as well for people who are. Is there any support for people who are dealing with debt or going to have recovery agents? Or
well, I started a charity 10 years ago where. It was probably one of my ideas before its time, really. But the idea was that when we went into people's homes, if we saw abject poverty, we would offer some form of help to the family. And we started that, and it's on a bit of a back burner at the moment, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to push that forward with the exposure that we're looking for, because I really do think that enforcement agents are seeing these problems. So, for example, we had a chap, we went to the house and he had a debt to pay, and we could see that he was struggling. His wife had left him and he had 3 small children, and he wanted to talk to us about paying the debt by instalments, which we're open to. And we said, okay, well, we do have a charity which we offer to families. We'll leave you some information. And he said, oh, what's it for? And he said, well, is there anything you need in the house? Is there anything that we could help you with? Now, we don't pay the debt, but is there anything we could help you with? And he said, well, you know, I've got 3 kids and my washing machine broke, and I just can't get the kids' uniforms clean for school, and they're going to school and they're being bullied because they're a bit smelly. I think they're very smelly, actually.
That's sad.
And the guy was, you know, he was broken. And we said, okay, well, our charity would actually, if you qualify, it's a very easy criteria, we'd actually supply you with a new washing machine. He went, what? And we went, well, yeah, so we're going to make a case out for you. And so we were able to give him a new washing machine.
Oh.
So he still owed the debt, he still had to sort that out.
But you made life a little bit better.
We made life a little bit better. And he said to me, you know, he said to the team, if you'd have told me when bailiffs knocked on my door that I would end up with a new washing machine, he said, you know, he couldn't believe it. And I think that's the point, that we can do that. And we want to do more of that. We would like to do more with families that are evicted. I've always felt that there's we're doing the eviction, we should be able to pass on the information about how to rehouse yourself. I don't think that interferes with our role at all, because we've carried out our job. You know, we've carried out the terms of the order, which is to evict the family. But why can't we signpost people?
Well, it's almost like your example about the security.
Yes.
You evicted people and then you kind of, you know, made secure the site. And actually now you're doing this, you're evicting people, but then you're giving the information about how they can rehome themselves. So you're kind of doing all the solutions. So business solutions is definitely what you do.
Well, you think
solutions for people.
You're thinking through the problem and you're looking at it from different angles. And why not? Why not help the people? I mean, they haven't done anything wrong. They just happen to be in a bad, you know, in a place, a bad way, a bad place, probably through no fault of their own. So I think it's responsible to think about those sorts of problems and offer solutions. And I don't see enough of that.
No, it's amazing to be a force for good, and I love it. But what do you think are the next developments then in your industry or sector? What's the big things that are coming for people to be aware of?
Well, I think in terms of security, the biometric side is big in America, and I think that's going to, you know, we're going to be irises are going to be photographed more. We're going to be passing through stuff more easily because of the biometrics that are being recorded about us. Of course, again, that impinges on our civil liberties, because all this data about our makeup is being recorded somewhere. But if it makes us more secure, I think as citizens we've got to realise we've got to surrender some of that to be able to move around in a way that we want to move around, particularly, you know, in travel and through cities, and, you know, so there's a lot. I think that is coming, and, you know, the UK it's really groundbreaking here compared to the United States. I think the States is such a vast country, 50 states.
Yeah, massive.
It has its challenges in terms of joining up its entire security industry in a way that the UK hasn't had to deal with, because it's only 4 states and a much smaller rock, you know.
I love that 4 states.
Yeah, well, it is 4 states. It makes up the United Kingdom. 50 states makes up the United States. So I think, you know, the United States obviously has its challenges in terms of weapons. finding ways to manage that and control that politically is very sensitive in the United States. And, Americans have the right under their Second Amendment to carry arms, and it is a right that they're not prepared to give up easily.
I think it's terrifying. I think guns are terrifying. And I dread a future where the UK would ever hold arms. I just think it's terrifying.
Well, the history of it is intriguing because, of course, the right to carry arms was given to Americans so that they could retaliate if the British ever came back.
Is that right?
We don't talk enough about this history.
No.
But it's all around, the War of Independence. This is where this all comes from. And this is why, the British are never going to come back, The United States has firmly established itself as a leader, and so that's not the problem. But, I suppose now Americans think, well, could it be another force? Not the British, but, because we're big allies, but could be, I'm not going to name a country, but it could be somebody else.
100%.
So the Americans will not easily give up that right, and we do not understand that as Brits because we don't have a written constitution. We don't have a right to carry arms, but if you were given one, maybe you wouldn't give it up so easily.
Yeah.
So they have that right. The question then is, how do you manage that? And again, lots of people saying it can't be done, it's all this, it's that. I actually think that the buying and selling of guns, there's a lot that could be done around that process in the United States to make sure that the right people have guns.
Yeah.
And if somebody is not going to meet the criteria, then they shouldn't be given a gun licence. And your right to carry arms is a right to carry arms as long as you're the right person,
100%.
The right sort of person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so...
The whole minefield, though, that is.
Oh, that's... for any Americans listening, I'm sorry, but that's a Brit talking, and I know you guys are never going to give your guns up, so I'm not even going to go there. It's not something
I'm sorry.
I'm not. Well, because it is very politically sensitive.
Yeah, but yeah.
And particularly in the security industry, which is, I suppose it's changing, but it's it's probably more men than women, but women carry guns.
Yeah.
So I think we have to accept that guns, I hear Brits say, or Americans should just give up their guns. It ain't going to happen.
No.
Right?
No.
So we have to bring in technology and systems around that to be able to manage it. And one of the things that I found very early on when I went to the States was these amazing canines out of Auburn University in Alabama, Vaporwave Canines, that can basically smell the residue of explosives in the human plume. We all have a human plume. It's our natural smell.
Darling,
each of us.
Mine's J'adore.
Yeah, of course. But if you had handled a bullet, it would be J'adore mixed with a bit of explosive.
Okay.
And the dog would be able to tell the difference between the perfume and the explosive residue.
Wow.
And that's what they pick up on. So they're not smelling your backpack if the backpack's got explosives in it, they're going to smell that. But if you've been handling it and it's left a trace in your hands or on your body somewhere, in maybe your trousers, you brushed up against something, it can tell that you have been near explosives. Now, that I think is tremendous. And these dogs, you have one dog at a National Football League game, NFL game in the States, one dog is sniffing 60,000 people in a stadium. This is the power of the canine's nose. The American government spent $10 billion trying to replicate a canine's nose. So that making sure you were only wearing a J'adore and not explosive, but they couldn't do it.
How fascinating is that?
So these canines are trained and they have patented training coming out of Auburn University, and I think I would like to see those canines worldwide.
Yeah, 100%.
And what happened was that the guy that I work with in the States, who's our VP of Operations, he was in the US military, and these dogs were deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq basically to smell out landmines.
Oh, wow.
So they were on patrol with the US military, and John was in charge of 650 canine teams. And of course, when the US military redeployed came back to the United States, this technology and this approach came into the mainstream security industry. So that out of all that I've seen in the security industry in terms of development, it is the development of these animals that I think could stop guns getting into nightclubs, guns getting into concerts, backpackers at concerts blowing people up.
Yeah. And also, it's something, it's an animal, and people love animals. So they'll probably be like, yeah, come on then, rather than technology, and they get terrified of robots. So actually, dogs are much more, we're accepting, aren't we?
Of course. And, you know, a lot of Brits go, as we did when we started, go on holiday to America. You know, go to Florida, Walt Disney World. And I can tell you that Vaporwave dogs are on patrol in Disney Springs. They are on patrol in the parks. Disney have a large contingent of Vaporwave animals as part of their security plan.
This is crazy. I didn't have a clue about this.
And so that's why I'm advocating them. I wish that more people would pick up on it. The police forces here. I know guns are not as prevalent here, but that's changing. And we've had our own share of domestic terrorism.
I'm going to say more dogs, less guns.
Exactly.
Let's do it.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been such an enlightening conversation for me.
Good.
I've learned so much. I can't even remember.
Do you feel
all.
safer now?
I do. I feel like yes.
Good.
No,
Good.
amazing.
Good.
But thank you so much. Where can people find out more about you? Oh, you've got a bunch of books as well. So where can people find out more? And
well, as the Americans say, you can check us out on www.shergroup.com.
Okay.
That's our website, and you can find us on Facebook, Instagram. You can call us, you can live chat to us.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, we're on every channel. Honestly, I love it.
And you've been an absolute star today, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Annelies. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, good.
Thank you so much.